Following hot on the trail of the Wyvern update, we now know that Age of Wonders 4 is going to receive two more significant updates this year. The Watcher update in summer, let's say around August, which will focus on the AI, on research and empire building, on the magic victory flow, and an underground map that's re-enhanced, more life and substance added down there. And then the Golem update in Q4 2023, let's say November-ish, where they'll be focusing on a very interesting new item forge system, war coordination with allied vassals, a faction balance and identity change, and enhanced water gameplay. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the detail that they've provided. It is a little bit light in some areas, but some of these new changes, particularly in that Golem update, are pretty interesting. So sit back and relax, and let's take a look at what's in store for the free updates for Age of Wonders 4 using the new roadmap as our guide. After talking a little bit at the start around how Age of Wonders 4 had an exceptional launch, they're focused on providing a fun experience for all kinds of players, and that their initial focus in the free Wyvern update was around stability, performance, and multiplayer, they address the lack of AI updates, something that many of you pointed out in the comments of my update video. They say that in a symmetrical strategy game like Age of Wonders, the AI is very important. They've been working tirelessly to enhance it, to make it more proactive in general and proficient in other subsystems. And in the summer's update, the Watcher update, they'll be prioritizing major AI improvements, but due to the complex nature of AI, they couldn't bring any fixes earlier in the Wyvern update. So they're essentially saying, we've got lots to do and say about AI, but we haven't been able to push any of it through just yet. So hold off until that free update scheduled for the summer, the Watcher update. Talking on flexibility of design, or perhaps what makes certain races or factions distinct from one another, they say that some design choices, intentional or otherwise, resulted in an overly flexible experience where everything is possible. And while accessibility is important, they want choices to have consequences, and factions to develop distinctly. They're planning to make significant effort in tightening several aspects of the game in upcoming updates, around that faction balance and identity perhaps scheduled for the Golem update in Q4. On science in Age of Wonders 4, or research and the research flow system in particular, they say that one of their highest priorities is to revamp this research system. Currently, it's too easy to acquire an abundance of tomes, causing balance issues and often resulting in homogeneous endgame factions, where basically you've got a whole load of everything and you've probably picked the best things most of the time. So we kind of all end up the same and we all have a lot of tomes. Their changes will limit players to a subset of tomes and affinities in a single session. So we'll be limited to a certain selection of them. It's quite interesting. Encouraging more meaningful choices and stronger faction identities. Again, leading back to that point that they made earlier about freedom versus constraints. Speaking of constraints, more checks and balances, they plan on introducing additional checks and balances to various mechanics, like tightening rules for casting summons, that wonderful way that you can summon a minion, summon a little unit for the army every turn down onto the map, only at the cost of some additional mana per turn. They also plan to limit the impact of direct damage spells on the world map and impose more severe penalties for exceeding the hero cap, apparently significant penalties. And this is probably needed because at the moment it's quite easy to go above the cap. You really just need a little bit of extra cash. Now around the conclusion of a game, how does it come to an end? Hopefully with victory, on victory conditions. They aim to make winning feel like a true achievement and ensure losing feels fair. They acknowledge the need for improvement in magic victory, which often occurs too early and doesn't scale along with map size or session length, something which, of course, the expansion victory must scale for. So there is potentially a need for change there. They go on to say, we want player factions to actively prevent opponents from reaching victory, rather than relying on PvE pressure, those minions that are spawned in, those armies of 6, around 2,000 strength between them. They say that we should expect a reworked magic victory in the upcoming Watcher update. Seal's victory will return as a premium feature for Empires and Ashes, so keep your eyes peeled for that one coming up in the Empires and Ashes update. And that will, of course, be the paid DLC that's coming alongside the free Golem update in Q4 of this year. So toward the end at the end of this year. Now on gameplay, or maps as I've called it, specifically we're talking about the Underground in the Watcher update, and then water gameplay following in the Golem update at the end of the year. They say that while map generation systems continue to evolve, there are specific areas they want to focus on. For the Watcher update, they are enhancing the Underground, making caverns more spacious and valuable, relocating the ore class of magic materials predominantly underground, granting higher annex ranges for underground cities, and introducing themed infestations through excavation. So excavation will be more valuable. Themed excavations will potentially produce infestations. They also plan to make annex ranges greater for underground cities and add more value to them through those magic materials. If you want to get the full set, you'll predominantly need to have some underground cities. And by making them a bit more spacious and valuable overall, they might be able to compete with the overworld, which currently, in my opinion, and seemingly most of yours, or at least the general development consensus, is moving this way. There's just not really a lot of value going down to the underground. Not really. The tiles are just worse. You'll just end up with a worse city. There, I said it. Anyway, moving along. In the Golem update, water gameplay improvements are also planned, offering more reasons to explore and exploit water provinces, as well as enhancing naval encounters. Lava gameplay, including lava walking and faction-specific lava sector exploitation, is under consideration for future updates, and I think that would be really cool, and that should move from consideration to implementation phase. Please and thank you. Finally, to conclude this section on maps, they say we will increase the number of notches on player distance relative to map size, so there's more, or some more, granularity there. I think all of these changes that we've talked about around maps are brilliant, and I'd love to see all of them, and more. And speaking of excitement around new features or enhanced existing features, this category directly addresses the newbies. In addition to addressing issues, they say we're dedicated to introducing exciting new systems. The Golem update will bring a war coordination system for vassals and other players, allowing you to request assistance in attacking specific targets. Thank goodness for that. We'll actually be able to send our vassals to war, or at least direct them in the general direction of an enemy army. Either of those things I would be fine with. They go on to say we're also developing an all-new item forge. The design already looks very promising as it integrates the collected magic material nodes in your domain. Brilliant. An item forge, potentially a way, of course, to create items that currently you would have to go and fight for, scavenge for, you'd have to get off fallen enemies, or inside of Ancient Wonders. At least that's how I'm interpreting that. A way to utilize magic materials, those magical material nodes, and forge new items from them. Sounds pretty interesting to me, and I can't wait to hear more, which I'm sure we will hear about, as I'm assuming they continue to plan out and roll out future development diaries like this one. And after a quick note around balancing, about how they continue to adjust balancing, it's an ongoing task. There's a specific focus or top priority on buffing ranged units at the moment, among other things. They talk about faction identity, which we've already addressed a little bit in some of the earlier points, but they say that faction creation lies at the heart of the game, and they're committed to enhancing it across updates. Absolutely, great. We should expect more options for customization and evolution, such as an additional form trait slot, and traits themselves, and new ways to alter army visuals. So there's a little bit to unpack there. There's an additional form trait slot, there are new traits, and ways to alter the visuals. Interesting. They say they're striving to improve faction identity and differentiation both from the start and as factions progress as we continue to develop the game. And that brings that to a close. I think there's potentially an opening there within faction identity to maybe have this new trait locked within a form. A complaint that I see really often all the time, and one that I've thought about myself, is that, actually, if we can just change all of the traits, then the form doesn't really mean anything except just for visually the way we look. And it might be nice to have traits specific to the form that are locked, unique to it. And this potentially opens the door for that, or at the very least, it opens the door for more traits, more differentiation. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then, of course, there's the paid DLC that'll go along with it, like how Dragon Dawn went along with the Wyvern update. So what does the paid DLC have to offer that's still to come later this year? Well, over on the Age of Wonders website, the expansion pass website, you can see that for Empires and Ashes, it reads, "The empires of mortals resurge after the devastation brought forth by Wizard Kings. In Age of Wonders 4 Empires and Ashes expansion, players fuse magic and steel to unleash devastating war machines to drive the god heir back to the Astral Sea. It includes a new culture, tomes, so multiple tomes again, empire building options that we've talked perhaps a little bit about today when they were talking about the Watcher update, and a story realm. And that is the Empires and Ashes DLC, expected to be more significant given its more significant price point as a standalone item. I believe twice the price of Dragon Dawn, coming in at $20 US instead of 10. Thank you very much for watching today's video where we talked about the future of Age of Wonders 4. I think personally it looks pretty bright, and what we've seen so far has been not only delivered very quickly, but also been at a pretty high quality, I think. Either way, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.